The Grand Star Palace floated quietly in the black sky. Its golden towers shone under the light of the twin moons. Inside, Queen Illyra stood tall in her royal chamber. Her long dark dress flowed like water, and her crown sparkled with blue stones. Her face looked calm, but her heart was heavy. It had been many years since the last war. Her people had suffered, and she had lost many things. But the one loss that never healed was her chosen mate. He had vanished during the early days of the war. No one had found his body. No answers, only silence. Since then, she ruled alone. Now, peace talks were starting. Humans had come with offers of friendship. A group of human guards had been sent to help keep order during the talks. Lyra did not trust humans easily, but she agreed to this. Her advisors said it was a smart move. Still, she kept her distance. The large golden doors of the throne room opened. Illyra sat on her high seat, watching the group of new human guards walk in. Most of them looked strong and proud. Their faces showed no fear. Then, one of them stepped forward. He was not the tallest. He was quiet and did not try to draw attention. But when Illyra's eyes fell on him, something inside her froze. Her breath stopped for a second. Her fingers tightened around the arm of her seat. The guard's name was Daniel. He looked young, but carried himself like someone who had seen battles. His face was calm, but to Illyra, that face was like a ghost. The shape of his jaw, the way his eyes moved, even the small scar above his brow. It was all the same. Illyra stared at him, her heart beat fast. She felt like time had stopped. Her mind went back to the last time she saw her mate. He had smiled at her, then walked into the ship. That was the day he vanished. Now here stood Daniel, a human guard, looking just like him. The chamber was silent. The other guards stood still. Daniel noticed the queen was looking at him, felt nervous but stayed quiet. He did not understand why her eyes were fixed on him. She looked like she had seen a ghost. Illyra forced herself to look away. She gave a short nod. The guards were told to leave and go to their stations. As they turned to go, Illyra spoke. "Wait, the one who came in last?" Daniel stopped and turned. "What is your name?" she asked. "Daniel," he said. She nodded again. "No? You will stay close to the throne room. I may need you." He bowed slightly. "Yes, Your Highness." The doors closed behind the rest of the guards. Illyra sat back, her hands shaking. She looked at her attendant, Mira, who stood close by. "Did you see him?" Illyra asked. "Yes, my queen. He looks like him, exactly." Illyra stood and walked to the window. She looked out at the stars. "It cannot be him." But I felt something. Like the past was waking up. Mira stayed quiet. She had seen her queen strong in every battle, but now she saw something else. Illyra was unsure. Illyra was shaken. Back in the guard's room, Daniel sat on his bed. His mind was full of questions. Why had the queen looked at him that way? Why had she asked for him to stay near? He thought maybe he had done something wrong. Or maybe she had seen something in him. He had no family name. He was found as a baby near a broken space station and raised by the military. He never knew his past. Maybe this queen had answers he did not. He looked out the small window. The stars were bright. Somewhere deep in his chest, he felt a strange pull. Like a thread was tying him to this place. The queen stood still in her room. Her fingers touched the old locket she always wore. Inside it was a picture of her lost mate. She opened it and looked again. The face inside was the same as the one she saw today. She did not believe in fate. But now, she was not so sure. Something had changed. And she needed to find out the truth. Daniel stood guard near the throne room, just as he was told. The tall silver walls around him were quiet. Other guards came and went, but he stayed in place. His mind was full of thoughts. He could not forget the way the queen had looked at him. It was not fear or anger. It was something else. Like she knew him. He had been trained to stay calm, but today his hands were not steady. He kept thinking about his past. He was found near a wreckage when he was a baby. No one ever told him where he came from. Maybe no one knew. He had always wondered who his real parents were, but no answers ever came. Now a queen from another world had looked at him like he was part of her past. He did not know what to make of it. Inside the royal chamber, Illyra sat with her advisors. They talked about the peace meeting that was to happen soon. But her mind was not on their words. She kept thinking about Daniel. Oh, she had not felt this way in years. Her mate had vanished long ago. Everyone had said he was gone forever. But this human guard looked like him, not just a little. He looked exactly the same. She had to know more. When the meeting ended, Alira asked Mira to bring Daniel to her. Mira did not ask why. She only nodded and left the room. Daniel was surprised when Mira came to him. She spoke softly and said the queen wanted to speak with him. He followed her through long golden halls until they reached the queen's private chamber. Alira stood near the window looking out. She turned when he entered. Her eyes met his again. "Daniel," she said, "do you know where you were born?" He shook his head. "No, Your Highness. I was found as a baby on a broken space station. Human forces raised me. I was told nothing more." She walked closer. "Do you remember anything at all? Any dreams or feelings?" He looked down. "Sometimes I dream of a woman's face. I can never see her clearly. But the feeling is warm, safe. I don't know who she is." Alira listened closely. Her heart beat faster. "I lost someone," she said. "A long time ago. He was very dear to me. You look just like him." Daniel frowned. "Cannot be. I'm human." She nodded. "Yes, but there are strange things in this galaxy. Things we still do not understand." She walked to a small table and picked up a silver device. "This will not hurt. I ask for your permission to take a small scan. I must know the truth." Daniel hesitated. Then he nodded. "Go ahead." Lyra pressed the device to his arm. It made a soft sound and showed a blinking light. She looked at the screen. Her hands shook. The match was clear. The scan showed that Daniel's genes were almost the same as her mate's. It was not exact, but close enough to raise more questions. She showed the result to Mira. Her face went pale. "This cannot be a trick," Mira said. "It is too close. Something has happened." Alira looked at Daniel. "You may not be him, but you carry part of him. I do not know how, but I must find out." Daniel sat down. His head felt light. His life he had felt something missing. Now maybe he was closer to the answer. "I do not understand," he said, "but I want to know too." Alira looked at him. She saw the calm strength in his eyes. It's just like before. "You will stay close to me," she said. "You will help me learn the truth." Daniel stood and gave a small bow. "Yes, Your Highness." As he left the room, Alira stood still, holding the scanner. The past was not done. It had returned in the form of a young man with no memory. But she would not lose him again. She would fight to know the truth. In the halls, Daniel walked slowly. He touched his chest. Something deep inside him felt alive, like a locked door had opened. He did not know what waited beyond, but he was ready to walk through it. In the stars above the palace, shadows moved. Far from their eyes, others were watching, and they were not pleased by what had begun. Daniel stayed near the queen's chambers as ordered. He trained with the palace guards in the morning and stood watch in the halls by evening. But his mind was not calm. Each day he felt more questions growing inside him. The queen had said he looked like someone she lost. She had scanned his body and found that his blood matched that man. Daniel had never known his parents. He had always felt like a piece of him was missing. Now he was starting to wonder if he was really who he thought he was. One morning, Queen Alira called him to the hidden chamber under the palace. It was a place few people knew about. The walls were made of black stone and lit by blue crystals. She stood beside a tall device covered in strange markings. "This is old tech from my ancestors," she said. "It reads memories trapped in the body. It may help us find the truth." Daniel looked at the device. He was nervous but curious. "Will it hurt?" "No," she said. "It only shows what is already inside." He stepped forward and stood in the center of the device. Alira pressed a button. A soft light came down over Daniel. The room grew silent. Then, shapes began to appear in the air. At first, the images were blurry. Then, they became clear. Alira saw a small child floating alone in space, crying. The child was picked up by a rescue team. That was Daniel, lost in the wreckage. Then came another image. A man standing in front of her, smiling. It was the same face, but older. She gasped. It was her mate. The machine was showing her own past. Then the image changed. Large explosion, a ship breaking apart, a hole in space pulling everything in. The man was trying to save others. He was pulled into the light. Then the screen went black. Daniel stepped away. His face was pale. I saw it, he said. I saw everything, that man. ... He looked like me. Illyra nodded. He was my mate. He died in that accident. Or so I thought. Okay. But now I believe the wormhole did something else. You think I am him? I think you are what was left behind, she said. A piece of him came through time, or space, or both. You are not a copy. You're something new, but with his soul. Daniel sat down. He felt strange. It was hard to understand, but inside he felt it was true. Illyra watched him. There is more, she said. This connection may be why you were drawn here, why the stars brought you to my world. Mira entered the chamber. She looked worried. My queen, she said. There is talk in the court. Some believe you are keeping secrets. They speak of the guard who walks with you. They do not trust him. Illyra frowned. Let them talk. I will not hide the truth. But Daniel stood up. Maybe it is better if I leave. I do not want to bring danger to your people. No, Illyra said. You are part of this. If there is danger, we will face it together. That night, Illyra sat alone with her old memories. She opened the locket again. The face inside was no longer just a memory. It was standing in her palace. Daniel looked out the window in his room. The stars were quiet, but he felt something watching. He did not know what it was, but it felt close. Far away in a hidden part of the palace, a group of nobles met in secret. They spoke in hushed voices. The queen is blinded, one said. She lets a human take a place near her heart. He is not one of us, said another, and he brings danger. They plan to act soon. They would not let a stranger rise in power, even if he wore the face of the past. In the morning, a storm would begin. But none of them knew how deep the past truly ran, or how strong the bond between Illyra and Daniel had become. The sun rose over the Star Palace, casting long shadows through the crystal windows. But inside the palace walls, trouble was growing. The whispers had become louder. Some nobles believed the queen had lost her way. Others feared what Daniel might become. Daniel woke early, as always. He trained with the guards, but he felt the change. Some of the others no longer looked him in the eye. One of them, a tall guard named Kellen, even bumped him on purpose during practice. Daniel stayed calm. He knew the signs. Trouble was near. In the main hall, Queen Illyra met with her advisors. They warned her that voices in the court were turning against her. They think you are letting your feelings cloud your rule, one of them said. They fear the past, Illyra answered. But I am not afraid of the truth. Later that day, she walked alone in the royal garden. Daniel followed her at a distance, as always. When she stopped to rest under a tall silver tree, he joined her. They do not trust me, Daniel said. They fear what they do not understand, she replied. I can leave. That may help. Illyra shook her head. No, you are not the cause of this. Your fears. She looked at him. I want you to be more than a guard. I want you to stand beside me when the time comes. Daniel was silent for a moment. If that is what you need, I will be there. That night, the plan against him began. Kellen, along with 2 other guards, entered Daniel's room while he slept. But Daniel woke before they could strike. He rolled from the bed and blocked the first attack. Fight broke out. He was trained, and he was fast. In moments, 2 men were down. Kellen ran. Daniel stood over the attackers. Blood dripped from a cut on his cheek. Did not enjoy the fight, but he had no choice. Soon the palace guards arrived. Mira came with them and saw the broken room. She looked at Daniel, then the guards. Take these men away, she said. They have broken the law. Daniel was brought to Illyra at once. She looked at him and saw the wound. I told you this would happen, he said. And I told you I would protect you, she said. The next morning, Illyra stood before the court. Many nobles were present. She stood tall and strong. There has been an attack, she said. One of our own was harmed by traitors. I will not allow such hate to live in these walls." Some nobles looked angry. Others looked afraid. Illyra raised her hand. "From this day, Daniel will serve as my royal protector. He has proven his loyalty. I trust him with my life." There was silence, then loud voices. Some shouted in protest, others clapped in support. But no one dared to move against her in that moment. Daniel stood beside her, silent. He knew this would not end the danger. It had only begun. Far above the palace, in the cold dark of space, a fleet moved closer. It belonged to a group that had always hated the idea of peace between humans and Illyra's people. They had learned about Daniel. They saw him as a threat. They were coming to destroy him and anyone who stood in their way. One of their spies sent a message to the palace. It reached the queen's desk that evening. She read it with cold eyes. "They are coming," she said. Mira looked at her. "Then we must prepare." Illyra nodded. "Call the human council. Tell them we need support. If we stand alone, we may fall. But if we stand together, we have a chance." Daniel stood by the window, watching the stars. He felt the weight of what was coming. But he did not feel fear. Not anymore. He was ready to fight. Illyra joined him. She placed her hand on the glass. "This world has lost much. I will not let it lose more." Daniel turned to her. "We fight together." She nodded. "Yes, together." In the halls beyond, soldiers moved quickly. The sky above the palace was still for now. The war was close, and this time, the past would not break them. It would make them stronger. The sky above the palace turned dark. Ships appeared in the clouds, their lights flashing like angry stars. Alarms rang across the halls. Soldiers ran to their posts. The time had come. Lyra stood in the center of the command room. Her voice was calm. "Let no fear guide your hearts. We fight not for land, but for our right to choose peace." Daniel stood beside her, wearing new armor made for the royal guard. He held his helmet under his arm and looked at the screen. Enemy ships were coming fast. "They want to destroy what we built," Daniel said. "Then we show them we will not be broken," Illyra replied. The first attack hit the outer walls. The palace shook, but the shield held. Cannons returned fire. In the sky, human ships arrived, just in time. Lyra had called for help, and they answered. The battle began. Fire lit the sky. Ships danced around each other, firing bolts of light. On the ground, enemy soldiers landed and tried to break through the gates. Daniel led a team to stop them. He fought with skill and strength. His mind was clear. For the first time, he felt like he was where he belonged. Illyra stood at the front line with her guard. She was no longer just a queen. She was a fighter. She moved with purpose, her blade glowing in her hand. Hours passed. The battle grew fierce. And then a large enemy ship moved over the palace. It charged a weapon aimed at the throne tower. Daniel saw it and ran. He knew what that weapon would do. He entered the tower and climbed to the top. There he found the old artifact Illyra once showed him. It was shaped like a ring, glowing with soft light. He placed his hand on it. The light grew stronger, his mind filled with images. He saw Illyra years ago, smiling. He saw his own face. Not as a guard, but as her mate. Memories returned. Not full, but enough. He remembered her voice, her touch, the promise he once made. Below, Illyra felt a wave of energy. She turned toward the tower. The artifact had awakened. Daniel stood inside the circle of light. The energy flowed through him. It reached up and struck the sky. The enemy weapon fired, but the beam split in two and vanished. The enemy ship lost power. The human and alien allies attacked it together. It fell from the sky and crashed far from the palace. The tide had turned. The enemy forces pulled back. One by one, their ships vanished into the dark. Silence returned. The palace stood tall, damaged but not fallen. Illyra climbed the tower and found Daniel sitting near the artifact. He looked up at her. "I saw you," he said. "I remembered. Not everything, but enough." She smiled. "And I was right. You were part of him, and part of myself," he said. "But I know where I belong now." Illyra held out her hand. Daniel took it. In the days that followed, the people rebuilt. The story of the guard who looked like the lost mate became legend. But to Illyra, it was not legend. It was real. She and Daniel walked the halls side by side, not as ruler and soldier, but as something more, something deep and old. Peace was no longer just a dream. It was a promise, written in the stars, born again through fire and memory. Together, they would protect it. Together, they would lead.